So we're going to start out doing a really tame segment. See, back when the news was this mild, you could have a news and politics show on YouTube and not have to worry about the lights being turned off on you, right? This is just politics with a capital P, this kind of segment here. It's just good old-fashioned 90s era, Senate, House, jockeying for power politics. So Chuck Schumer, this was on March 12th. So March 12th would have been Thursday, correct? No, Wednesday. Republicans drafted their continuing resolution without any input from congressional Democrats. Because of that, Republicans do not have the votes in the Senate to invoke cloture on the House CR. Our caucus is unified on a clean April 11th continuing resolution. We should vote on that. So here's Chuck Schumer talking very, very tough about how he is going to vote no and have a united Democratic caucus voting against the Republican CR and potentially force a government shutdown. So here he is talking very tough.
Government should be funding the government should be a bipartisan effort. But Republicans chose a partisan path, drafting their continuing resolution without any input from congressional Democrats. Because of that, Republicans do not have the votes in the Senate to invoke cloture on the House CR. Our caucus is unified on a clean April 11th CR that will keep the government open and give Congress time to negotiate bipartisan legislation that can pass. We should vote on that. I hope our Republican colleagues will join us to avoid a shutdown on Friday. I yield the floor.
Okay, now I would say a few moments later, but it's not a few moments later. It's actually 24 hours later. So
Look
it took
at
a little
Keaton
bit
with
longer.
the meme play.
Yeah. Unfortunately, and for the sake of accuracy, I could not say this was a few moments, but still a pretty stunning reversal because just 24 hours later, on March 13th, Chuck Schumer comes out and immediately caves. I believe it's my job to make the best choice for the country to minimize the harms to the American people. Therefore, I will vote to keep the government open and not shut it down. Here he is explaining why everything he said the day before was just empty threats and chest pounding. And okay, I give up.
While the CR bill is very bad, the potential for a shutdown has consequences for America that are much, much worse. For sure, the Republican bill is a terrible option. It is not a clean CR. It is deeply partisan. It doesn't address far too many of this country's needs. But I believe allowing Donald Trump to take even much more power via a government shutdown is a far worse option. I believe it is my job to make the best choice for the country to minimize the harms to the American people. Therefore, I will vote to keep the government open and not shut it down. There is nobody in the world, nobody, who wants to shut the government down more than Donald Trump and more than Elon Musk. We should not.
Talking like he's still standing up. So, by the way, just so everybody knows, what a clean CR is a spending bill that maintains spending levels according to the previous year's budget. So a clean CR would be, for example, no cuts, as opposed to this CR, which is $13 billion worth of cuts, and no increases in what? Defense spending. So this CR raises the military budget by $6 billion and cuts $13 billion worth of a lot else. That's non-military spending. So this is what they would call a dirty CR, a filthy CR, a horrible CR. So when he says he wants a clean CR,
A slutty CR.
a slutty CR, a dirty, slutty CR, exactly. So when he said he wanted a clean CR, they wanted to just basically buy themselves time to avoid a shutdown and keep everything the way it was until they get to that. They had the ability to push for that because the Republicans need 60 votes in order to proceed for the final passage of the bill. So he had the power to block the Republicans. And the reason he didn't want to do that is because that would trigger a government shutdown where he argues Donald Trump would have even more executive power than he has now. Of course, according to this CR, Donald Trump and the executive branch still have a tremendous amount of discretion, which means nothing in this CR is going to stop Doge from essentially going through and cutting what they like. CR or no CR, we know they weren't really paying much attention to Congress anyway. So what this is just a blank check for Donald Trump, Elon Musk, and Doge through the end of September. We'll let them keep going.
Not give it to them. And make no mistake, Democrats will continue to fight what Donald Trump is doing. Everything that Trump, Musk, and Republicans have done so far has a clear goal. Again, cutting taxes for billionaires, eviscerate Social Security, Medicare, and Medicaid. This is the fight that matters most, and the fight we must focus on. All the chaos we
starting tomorrow.
All the lawlessness, all the grift and corrupt behavior.
It's going to be a good day.
It's all about rigging the system
tomorrow
in favor of the ultra-wealthy at the expense of working Americans. This is the fight the American people need to see. This is the fight that Democrats will win.
When? When? I mean, you're literally giving them what they want. Now, notice he says at the beginning of that, no one wants a shutdown more than Donald Trump. Well, if that's true, why did Trump tweet this out? Congratulations to Chuck Schumer for doing the right thing. Took guts and courage. The big tax cuts, LA fire fix, debt ceiling bill, and so much more is coming. We should all work together on that very dangerous situation. A non-pass would be a country destroyer. Approval will lead us to new heights. Again, really good and smart move by Senator Schumer. This could lead to something big for the USA. A whole new direction and beginning. Signed, DJT. So apparently, Donald Trump did not want to shut down.
It's like a letter from the Zodiac.
Yeah, right, exactly. And was very, very happy that a shutdown was averted. But you know who was not happy? Just about every other Democrat in Congress, save what did he get? He got 15 to vote along with him plus another 14. It ended up being a 62-38 vote in the Senate. So you didn't get most of the Democrats to go along with this. And, of course, only one Democrat in the House voted for the original CR, Jared Golden, swing state, very right-wing Democrat. Shutdown vote leaves Democrats bitterly divided and Schumer under fire. The Senate averted a federal government shutdown full of political and practical unknowns. But the decision to back the GOP funding bill has left the party still reeling from Donald Trump's 2024 win, even more rudderless and divided. House Democrats are taking shots at Senate Democrats, A fired-up base feels enraged and is flooding senators' phone lines. And Senate Minority Leader Charles E. Schumer has emerged as a lightning rod absorbing the party's anger, with some of his key allies standing silently by while he's attacked. I knew when I made this decision I'd get a lot of criticism from a lot of quarters, Schumer said in an interview.
Not bad.
Let's face it. Yeah, that's pretty good. The House was in a much easier position. They could vote no on the funding bill without shutting down the government. The Senate, we can't do that. See, they have it easy. They could just vote no and not face any consequences for their decision. There would be some consequences for my decision, so I decided to just punt. That's basically what he's saying there. Schumer, who has led the Senate Democratic caucus for 8 years, defended his decision to vote for the GOP funding bill as the best way to fight Trump's sweeping plan for downsizing the government, saying a shutdown would be Doge on steroids. He said the same activists who are vexed now would be pleading with Senate Democrats to reopen the government a few weeks into the shutdown. Once it became clear Trump and Elon Musk's U.S. Doge service were taking advantage of the closure to make even deeper cuts. There's no off-ramp, he said, of a shutdown in a GOP-controlled Washington. But Schumer's explanation has done nothing to stem a fierce tide of criticism from House Democrats, including talk of a primary challenge and pushback from within its own chamber that has weakened one of the Democratic Party's few visible leaders. In a stunning rebuke, Schumer's former leadership counterpart, Representative Nancy Pelosi, publicly urged Senate Democrats to vote against their leader on Friday, pulling the old identity politics card as they always do. Democratic senators should listen to the women, Pelosi said in a statement, referring to, hey, whatever works. But in this case, it didn't work well enough. Pelosi said in a statement, referring to Patty Murray, the top Democrat on the Senate Appropriations Committee, and Rosa DeLauro, the top Democrat on the House Appropriations Committee, both of whom opposed the bill. This damaging legislation only makes matters worse. Lawmakers as diverse as Senator Michael Bennet, who is relatively moderate, to Murray, who is more liberal, expressed frustration with Schumer's strategy. They were upset that they did not discuss their plan as a group until Tuesday when they walked through the choice they faced, even though it had been clear this funding deadline had been approaching for weeks. I've never seen anything like it in the time I've been in the Senate toward any leader on our side, a senior Democratic aide said of the frustration now facing Schumer. But in the interview, Schumer brushed back criticism that he should have planned earlier for the possibility that Speaker Mike Johnson would have enough votes to pass the funding bill in the House and begin crafting a unified message on it earlier. Quote, we had hoped that maybe Johnson couldn't get the votes, Schumer said, but when he did, it put us in a very, very tough place. Again, that's the most powerful Democratic politician in America right now. Yeah, we had hoped that maybe the Republicans wouldn't jam through a shitty bill. They haven't been known to do that in the past, and when they did it, we were kind of taken by surprise. Schumer suggested that he and House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries were on the same page on the low odds of Johnson passing a funding bill on his own. I talked to Hakeem regularly, and he was very hopeful that it wouldn't pass. And he was very hopeful that he could get all the Democrats, and I'm glad he did. So again, just more double talk from Schumer. He's saying, I'm glad Jeffries was able to get all of the House Democrats to vote no. But you just voted yes. And one of the big problems that a lot of the House Democrats have with Schumer is it was kind of a tough vote for a lot of the swing district Democrats to take. Right. And they hoped that at least their party leader would have their back on it. Now they took that tough vote for nothing because the Senate just passed it through anyway. Dozens of House Democrats slammed Schumer in a letter on Friday. If Republicans in Congress want to pass this bill, they should do so with their own votes, Representative Derek Tran and 65 other Democrats wrote in the letter. However, since they cannot, Republicans must work with Democrats to pass a clean funding bill. So far, Schumer's own senators are declining to criticize him, even as they forcefully argue for a different strategy. I remain convinced this was the moment for us to have a fight and to make it clear that we're going to stand up to President Trump, Senator Chris Coons told reporters. But there are differences of opinion in my caucus, and I respect those who have reached a different conclusion. In remarks to reporters Thursday night, Schumer said he faced a Hobson's choice, an apparent decision that's really no choice at all. The bottom line is you have to make these decisions based on what is best for not only your party but your country, Schumer said. I believe that my members understand that I came to that conclusion and respect it. So, again, just not making it any better on yourself. If it's a Hobson's choice, if it's a meaningless choice, then that's all the more reason to vote no. Because by voting no, you're at least drawing a clear line between you and the Republican Party. You're at least signaling to your base that you're going to vote no on a blank check for Elon and Trump to keep going through and making essentially whatever cuts that they want, since this CR, not only does it already cut $13 billion worth of non-military spending, but it also gives Trump and Elon broad authority to cut even more should they so choose. So if it's not a meaningful choice, then doesn't the decision fall to whether or not it's good optics, whether or not it's good politics, whether or not it actually generates enthusiasm in your base or depresses your base? Obviously, the base really wanted you to take a stand here, which is why Chris Matthews and Morning Joe go on MSNBC to try and manufacture consents for caving. So here is the controlled opposition network, MSNBC, trying to explain why actually Schumer had no choice but to back the GOP funding bill.
About the importance of people that were fighting, but when you fight, you also have to fight smart. And while I think Democrats would love the opportunity to push back against Republicans, again, as we found out, because we went through one or two government shutdowns, when you shut down the government, the president is the one that decides what's needed, not needed, and a shutdown would just hand over a lot more power to Elon Musk.
Yeah, I mean, I imagine that Chuck Schumer went through a lot of hell to get to this decision yesterday. He did not want to be there. He didn't want to be the odd man out, the leader that hadn't fought. But if you look at the House of Representatives, the Speaker was very smart to get a majority support for his budget, for the CR. He got it through. He didn't need any Democrats in the House. And then he sent them all home. The whole House of Representatives has been sent home. They're not in Washington. And then the Senate has a majority. Even without Rand Paul, they've got 52 votes. They have a majority. So to beat them, you have to filibuster. Well, it used to be Democrats didn't like to filibuster on the issues, but everybody said he should have filibustered. Chuck Schumer was in a problem. He also saw what it was going to look like 2 or 3 weeks from now. If they hadn't gotten back to the government, if the government had shot down for a couple of weeks, then who are you going to blame? Trump and his tariff craziness, his trade war? Or are you going to blame the Democrats for shutting the government down? You got to look forward. You can't all be Bernie Sanders. You can't all be in the back room. You can't all be sitting in the back benches and blaming the leadership. The leadership has to make tough decisions. Schumer made his, and he's going to have to pay for it. If he gets the votes to support the Republicans, this thing will be through this weekend, and we'll see who looks better later. But Schumer's in a tough spot, and it
So interesting.
And, I'm just going to say, if Donald Trump had not won, I don't think you'd have me on here. He has made it safe for old perverts to come on Morning Joe. Let's be honest.
Yeah. Well, let's be honest about that. So if you look, Chris Matthews just made the point that Democrats would be blamed for a shutdown. When you look at the polling, it's actually quite the opposite. 32% of the country would blame Democrats for a shutdown. 31% would blame Republicans, and 22% would blame Donald Trump. So if you add the congressional Republicans column to the Donald Trump column, what that means is actually 53% of Americans would blame the Republican Party and not the Democrats. So actually, the Democrats could have very easily stuck to their guns. There wouldn't have been a tremendous price to pay, as he's trying to make it sound there. But those are, as the MSNBC viewers would say, those are the basic white men who get to keep their jobs at MSNBC, whereas Joy Reid, afuera! They're done, gone. Well, here is a second opinion on the same network. So this is that new show of theirs, The Weekends, which I don't know how many people watch that show. I always forget this congresswoman's name. She's a former congresswoman from Maryland. But she gives a different side of the story that's much more representative of the party base. Donna Edwards, that's it. I always forget her name. She's a familiar face. I always forget.
Look, I think that, the reality here is there was no message, no strategy, and at the end of the day, no leadership. And this is really a black mark, I think, on Chuck Schumer. You cannot signal on Wednesday that you want to fight, and then on Thursday, you cave. And so now Republicans know that all they have to do is play Democrats, and it'll work. And I think that Representative Ocasio-Cortez is right when she says that frontline members who are in the toughest district in the country, now have to go out there having taken really a very difficult vote without any support from the Senate leadership. I think it's deeply disappointing. And I think if Democrats had started and Chuck Schumer had started with a serious message in advance, then they could have sold to the American people that, one, this was not a continuing resolution. In fact, it cut government spending. What a continuing resolution does is it continues government funding as it is until appropriations bills can come through. That is not what happened here. And frankly, they have a slush fund, the administration does, because there were no parameters put on the spending that was done. And so now Republicans can do whatever it is that they want over these next several weeks, and especially Trump and Musk. They have carte blanche in the administration, and I think this is a real black mark, a stain on Chuck Schumer's leadership.
Well, that by far a more popular opinion than Chris Matthews, which might explain why new polling today shows that among the American public overall, the Democratic Party's favorability rating stands at just 29%, a record low in CNN's polling dating back to 1992. So the first big fight, the first big test that the Democrats had in the resistance era 2.0, they failed. And they failed it largely because of Chuck Schumer, who went against the wishes of, when you add together all the Democrats who voted no, what was it, 213 in the House. You had basically 14 Democrats defy the wishes of 250 plus Democrats to push through this Republican bill, when, as you see, despite Chris Matthews' attempt to spin this, the people would have blamed Donald Trump and or the Republicans in Congress far more than they would have blamed the Democrats, because they're the majority party. They're the majority party. And so obviously the right thing to do is to force them to come to the table and just say no to everything until they give you what you want. That's the only leverage you have. It's just to be as obstructionist as you possibly can. There's no doubt that's what the Republicans would do if the shoe were on the other foot. But of course, the Democrats don't get paid to play power politics. They get paid, to lose. It's good cop, bad cop. Their role is to do what Schumer did. Come up there, talk tough, cave, and blame it on, well, I just felt a civic duty to keep the government open because we'd be giving Trump more power if we shut it down. If there were a government shutdown, it would fall to the executive branch to determine which services and departments are essential versus non-essential. So yes, they would have tremendous power. As Schumer himself said, it's a Hobson's choice because they have tremendous power now anyway. That's with Congress. And as we know, they have not paid any attention at all to what Congress has mandated or not mandated in these first 6 weeks. So basically, you had an opportunity here to convince your base that you were using what little leverage you have. And Schumer, of course, gave that all away. Not really a surprise.
All right. This is the problem. If you are a party without a point of view, without an ethos, without a mission, without a goal, without a plan, without a project, you have nothing to organize around. You have nothing to motivate people to go the extra mile, to risk their political careers. It is simply a money laundering scheme and a professional network. There is no actual opposition party there. The Republicans, say what you will, they had a mission. They had a very clear vision coming into the 2024 elections of what they wanted to do. If you asked anybody, what do the Republicans want to do? They would have been able to list 3, 4, 5, maybe more things that the Republicans want to do. They want to get transgender people out of sports. They want to impose tariffs. It would have been very clear to people what their agenda was. If you ask people, what is Kamala Harris going to do? Shit, we do this for a living. I could barely answer that question.
Right.
If you had asked me that in October 2024, what's Kamala Harris's agenda? I don't know. She's going to call the opposition weird. I don't know.
Right.
Like what was their message other than a cultural message? Now, it's easier for the Republicans to stand for something because the donors like their agenda. The Democrats, as soon as they sold themselves to Wall Street under Bill Clinton, they lost their reason for existing. So at this point, yeah, Schumer, okay, you could shut down the government and, all right, yeah, they should have done that. To what end, though? Like, you have to ask, like, what would they be demanding? What would their demands be? They don't actually have a politics. They have no particular political agenda. It's just they've been reduced to just a basic, nicer version of what the Republicans do.
Well, yeah, obviously. I mean, it's a status quo party. It's an end of history party. I mean, in this particular example, the short-term goal would be to get a clean CR so that there are no budget cuts for 30 days until they get another bite at the apple.
It's not enough. You know, Daniel Burnham, the turn of the century architect who designed the Chicago World's Fair, he designed the Flatiron Building. When he unveiled his plan for the Chicago World's Fair, the White City, he said, God, man, that's too much. And he said, well, I'm paraphrasing a bit, but he said, small goals have no power to stir men to greatness. when you just say, yeah, we just want a clean CR, it's not enough. You'd be better off saying you're going to demand better unemployment insurance. You're going to demand higher Social Security increases. That's something to motivate people. Why do you think, in spite of the fact that he's a sheepdog who never actually delivered on anything he promised, Bernie Sanders is drawing these enormous crowds? Because even though he's full of shit, what he's describing is a goal. It's the Big Lebowski thing. Say what you will about National Socialism. At least it's an ethos. You're talking about a party with no ethos. So when you come to these moments of crisis, of challenge, there's nothing for them to really motivate people around or organize people around, not even the general public.
Well, this is why James Carville said that the strategy that the Democrats should employ here is just roll over and play dead. Just don't do anything and let the Republicans own all of this chaos, which I got to say,
that's what
from a strategist standpoint, well, not exactly. I mean, in this example, they actually gave the Republicans what they wanted. They actually showed up and voted yes when the Republicans needed them to. I think what Carville's saying is play dead. Just vote no on everything. Vote no on everything. Let them shut down the government. They'll let them come to you with a clean CR to kick the can. In other words, just be a status quo party, lay down, get out of their way, and trust that they will tank things so bad that you will ride that wave back into power. If you're a party that stands for nothing, that probably is the best advice you could get at this point, because they're obviously not going to rally around anything else. Now, from a sort of palace intrigue standpoint, I'll say, Chuck Schumer's got a lot of the dirt on his face now. But I can tell you right now, this doesn't look good for Hakeem Jeffries either, because there are a lot of people who write a lot of big checks to the Democratic Party now who I guarantee you are saying, you know what? God damn it. If Nancy Pelosi were head of the party in the House, if she were the minority leader and she told Senate Democrats to vote no, they'd have voted no, because she's got the juice. Jeffries has no juice. Jeffries has no charisma. He doesn't have the experience. He does not have the stature. He is a fundraising machine. That's why he's in the job, but not like Nancy is a fundraising machine. No. He really is embarrassed in this as well. And
Nancy
this is why
cannot play the alphabet game.
Yeah, right. She can't play the alphabet game. But between Jeffries and Schumer, you have, and the polling says it right there, a 29% favorability rating for the party overall. There really is a crisis of confidence within the Democratic Party from the second and third ranking Democrats in the House and Senate all the way down through the rank and file. They are in such shambles, which is good. I mean, obviously it has to get to that point.
Yeah, it's the final act that really began in earnest. Of course, the groundwork was laid in the 70s, but with Clinton's election and the inauguration of neoliberalism as the defining ethos of the Democratic Party, it could never have ended any other way. There was always an inherent meaninglessness of a Wall Street owned left party. They got away with it for a while. Is this a great time or what? We're going to give microloans. We don't have to be at war with business. We just have to persuade business that it's good for business to be nice to people. Hey, everybody wins. We don't have to have any class antagonism. No, of course, that's all nonsense. They got away with it while there was enough money sloshing around in the economy. There were enough remnants of New Deal social safety net policies that there was some kind of a middle class still existing. And the internet was being invented when Clinton came in. It was being commercialized. It wouldn't have mattered what the economic policy coming from the White House was. There would have been a boom economy. And that was really the tragedy of the 90s. It made people think Clintonian economics worked for average people, rather than this was a quirk of history where you could get away with this kind of austerity and still have a booming economy.
Please clap.